We all know during this lockdown, we are doing this webinar and we want to be benefited out of this webinar. I have chosen the topic that recent changes and burning issues. I will definitely make it useful for all the participants. I know most of the participants knows me by name. They know me that GST, we are doing good and trying that GST should be good and simple tax. As on date, GST is a little away from good and simple tax, but we will try to make it simple today while discussing burning issues in GST. So my request to the participants would be that you must be having a piece of paper before you and a pen or pencil. This webinar should be beneficial to each one of you. That's the reason I'm asking you, because I'm going to discuss 10 important issues today. I've been allotted 1 hour 30 minutes, and definitely I'm telling you there's no PowerPoint presentation. Rest assured you'll be liking each of the topic which I'm going to discuss today. I only want that you should be actively participating. Maybe you can keep a cup of tea or coffee in front of you, a water glass in front of you, and enjoy the session. I'm going to discuss these 10 issues at length, which would be burning as well as recent changes which is coming out as a tax relief measure in the light of this corona we all are fighting together. So let me start with, and once again, thanking all the organizers, Anil Baisa, Animesh Ji, ClearTax, for inviting me for today's webinar, and thanking each of the participants who are taking out their time and participating today. I'm sure they are going to be benefited with this webinar. So I'm going to discuss, but there's a task which I want to give to all the participants. And task is, at the end of my session, I'm going to ask 5 questions. Since, see, I'm going to tell you everything. I'm going to deliver for 1.5 hours. Lot many points I'm going to deliberate today. I'm going to give a task to you. I'm going to ask 5 questions at the end of my session. And I want to see who is the participants really in a position to give the answer. So what I want at this moment from the participants to say, yes, they are ready. If they are ready, then I feel, yes, everyone's getting connected, like Jeevan has said, Dhananjay said, Nikhil says, Rahul says, Varas says. So everyone is now getting ready. So it's a good, because everyone is now chipping in and they're saying they are ready to answer my 5 fire question at the end of my session. That's great. And it looks like now we are getting united together. I want this interaction should be both sided. You should feel like that I'm with you and you are with me, and we are connecting together, creating synergy of discussion which we want to run through. So let's start with the first burning issue along with the recent changes. The first is the burning issue and recent changes. Both I'm going to discuss today. Now I will request participants to pause and listen to me carefully. Do not put anything on comment box. Voice is not very clear. Pankaj, just check your system. Voice is clear to other participants. Request to you, just check at your system. Nevertheless, let me start with the first pointage, the burning one, and there's the recent changes also. Listen this one. Rule 36, sub-rule 4 of the CGST rule 2017. This rule got inserted on 9th October 2019 by notification number 49/2019. So what is this rule? So if you know the rule, just carry on along with me. If you don't know this rule, try to grasp the provision. And even those who know the rule, I'm going to challenge them. There's certain new thing which I'm going to tell you today. Certain new thing within this rule I'm going to tell you today. So let's participate. This rule 36, sub-rule 4 of CGST rule 2017, create a condition. Condition of what? Capping. It is creating a capping of initially 20%, effective from 9th of October 2019, which got reduced to 10% from 1st January 2020. So capping of 10% of my eligible credit. I'm a recipient of goods or services. So there's a capping of 20% of eligible credit in my hands pertaining to such invoices or debit note which is not uploaded by my supplier or vendor. Let's assume you all are supplier. You all are supplier. You're supplying goods or supplying services to me. I'm a recipient. Now, this Rule 36 Sub-Rule 4 says, Bimal, there would be capping of 20% effective from 9th October 2019, reduced to 10% from 1st January 2020, pertaining to such invoices or debit note which is not uploaded by my supplier, my vendor. So you have not filed your GSTR 1, uploaded in GSTR 1. So if you have not uploaded, quite obvious it will not come and reflected in my GSTR 2A. So it is not reflecting in my 2A, but otherwise I'm satisfying all the condition of section 16 subsection 2 for availing credit. What are the conditions under section 16 subsection 2? For the benefit of all, there are 4 conditions. The first condition, being recipient, I must have tax invoice or tax paying document first. Second, being a recipient, I must have received goods or services. Third, my supplier, which you, must have paid taxes to the government exchequer. I have paid the amount and tax to you. In turn, you must have deposited with the government exchequer. If you have not deposited, in spite of after collection from my side, I will not be given credit. Section 16, subsection 2, clause C. So there's a fault on the part of supplier, non-payment on the part of supplier. My credit, recipient credit can be denied. And last condition, being recipient, I must have filed my return. So what this rule says, let me go and proceed further. This say, Bimal, there would be capping of 10% of eligible credit pertaining to such invoices and debit note which is not uploaded by vendor in GSTR 1. So I'm taking one example so that you can understand. Let's say I've got 15 lakh rupees book credit. There's a 15 lakh rupees book credit in my books of accounts. And 10 lakh rupees credit coming in my GSTR 2A. Meaning thereby, there's a mismatch of 5 lakh rupees. As per books, 15 lakh. But as per my GSTR 2A, it is 10 lakh. Meaning thereby, my vendor has not filed invoice or debit note uploaded in their GSTR 1. That's the reason this 5 lakh is not reflected. Mismatch of 5 lakh. Now, what does Rule 36 Sub-Rule 4 says, Bimal, pertaining to this 5 lakh, now you will be given credit and there will be capping of 10% of eligible credit, which is reflected in my 2A, So there are 5 lakh rupees which is not coming in my 2A. I want to avail this credit and I'm assuming I'm satisfying all conditions. But since my vendor has not filed GSTR 1, so what happened? There will be capping up 10% of eligible credit reflected in my 2A. If I leave this thing here and post a query to all of you, just to check whether you got correctly or not. As against 5 lakh, how much credit would be eligible to recipient of goods or services in terms of this rule? Kindly say in your comment box. All right, 1 lakh rupees. Perfect. Everyone is right. Now, next. Let's assume this GSTR 2A, which is showing 10 lakh, includes 2 lakh rupees. Out of 10 lakh reflected in my 2A, includes 2 lakh rupees ineligible credit, that is 17 subsection 5, block credit, negative list. So 10 lakh is inclusive of 2 lakh rupees. Now tell me, in terms of rule 36 sub rule 4, how much credit would be available as against 5 lakh? 80,000. Perfect. So everyone is aligned. Perfect. Now let me proceed further. Now, government has issued one circular number 123, dated 11th November 2019. This circular says, Bimal, this is self-assessment tax. You do all these calculations at your end. As per GST and common portal, there will not be any kind of restriction or facility. You do all working at your end and clarify certain things. While clarifying, I raised some of the question to my mind. The first question which came up to my mind, they are saying that 10% of eligible credit reflected in my GSTR 2A. Now, first question comes, with GSTR 2A, when I should download this GSTR 2A for a particular month. So let's say I assume I'm talking about December 2019. Let's assume I'm talking about December 2019. Then this circular says, Bimal, you have to download your GSTR 2A on 11th of January. This circular is saying, there's no provision per se anywhere. This circular is only saying that you should download your circular GSTR 2A on 11th of January, and then on that GSTR 2A number, you should do the calculation of capping. Now, question coming to my mind. What happened? You are my vendor. For the month of December, if you file your GSTR 1 on 12th of January, which you are supposed to file by 11th of January, but you filed on 12th January, possible, quite possible situation. Whether the figure, the invoice, which is uploaded on 12th January, figure going to be reflected in my 2A of 11th January? Answer is big no. So mismatch created. First mismatch. Second mismatch. There's so many quarterly return filer. They file quarterly. So for October to December, quarterly return filer are supposed to file by 31st January. So if I download my 2A on 11th January, for quarterly vendor, this figure is not going to be reflected in my 2A, which is downloaded on 11th January. So what happened? To that extent, again mismatch. So it looks like to me, my working capital getting blocked. First, it is being restricted to 10%. And second, just because my vendor is not tax compliant, first, because it's filing on 12th January or thereafter, which he is supposed to by 11th January, or for quarterly return filer, which is by way of law. They will file quarterly and figures are going to be reflected only after their GSTR1 filing, creating a problem. Third component therein. Now this rule 36 sub rule 4 says, Bimal, whatever reflected in your 2A, I'm creating one situation for all of you. Let's say you are my vendor. I said you are my vendor and supplier. You have not filed GSTR1, hence figure not coming in my 2A. But there may be a possibility that you have filed your GSTR3B. I'm just creating a situation that you have not filed GSTR1, hence it is not reflected in my 2A, but you have filed GSTR3B. So being buyer, being recipient, I'm satisfying all the condition of section 16 subsection 2. I have tax invoice, I have received goods and services, my supplier has paid taxes by filing 3B. He has not only filed GSTR1, and being recipient, I file my return. Even though credit is not coming in my 2A, am I supposed to apply capping provision? Now I'm creating big Pandora's box. This rule 36 sub rule 4, if you ask me, to my mind, it's ultra vires the law. Ultra vires the law. Believe me, it's ultra vires the law. That is my considered view. Let me go a step further. This circular has clarified something which I feel, instead of clarification, they are confusing the trade, industry, and commerce. What they are saying, I asked them, sir, if this capping need to be calculated, tell me, am I supposed to do supplier wage, invoice wage, or consolidated? The circular says, Bimal, it need to be done consolidated. But I'm of the view it is not possible. I'm giving you one example to you. Let's say you're my vendor, you charge 10,000 rupees at GST on invoice, and 10,000 rupees is being charged on invoice to me. But while filing GSTR1, you have done some mistake, and you have written figure 10 lakh as against 10,000. So for that particular tax period, my GSTR2A will show 10 lakh. And if I take the basis of consolidated, then capping would be calculated on 10 lakh rupees, which is not supposed to be. So I'm just making counter reversion. They are saying it should be consolidated, but not possible. You will end up doing calculation on incorrect, wrong credit coming in your 2A. So what is answer coming out? Even though circular says consolidated, but it needs to be on invoice wise. Otherwise, what happened? You end up paying excess credit. First, you will take excess credit, then end up paying this reversal of excess credit taken. Then the question of interest and penalty will also come. So this is the contrary version of the circular. Now, for the benefit of all, when we are doing this capping of 20% and 10%, what you should not consider, wherein you can take 100% credit. First, if you are importing goods and paying IGST, take 100% credit. That should not be considered for capping purpose. Reverse charge method, if you pay any tax under reverse charge, should not be considered for capping purpose. ISD credit, input service distributor credit, should not be considered for capping purpose. Then any credit which is being reversed because of the provision, like non-payment within 180 days, and then you can avail credit after payment, then this credit which is being reversed and again availed should not be considered for capping purpose. Transitional credit, Tran 1. If Tran 1 credit is being availed, that should not be considered for this calculation of capping purpose. So this is for the benefit I've conveyed to you. Now, let me come back to a point that this rule is ultra vires. Why ultra vires? Listen very carefully. This rule, which is creating capping, and I created one provision before you, that you as a vendor has filed 3B, but not filed GSTR1. And being recipient, I'm satisfying all 4 conditions. Why credit would be denied to me? Point blank, I would like to highlight one provision to you, section 16, subsection 2, clause C. Section 16, subsection 2, clause C start with subject to 41, which is provisional credit, and 43A, which is furnishing of return and availing credit, matching of ITC. 43A subsection 4, which talks about taxes charged by the supplier and credit availed by the recipient, matching thereof. This was supposed to be applicable from 1st April 2020, the new return system. Now got postponed to 1st October 2020. Now this 43A subsection 4, which talks about some capping of credit pertaining to such invoices and debit note which is not uploaded. This provision is not yet effective. Going to be applicable only from 1st October 2020. My first question as a law person, can we bring any rule which is contrary to the provision of law? To me, rule are to be looked at as son, my son, and provision must be looked at as a father. My only question, whether son can born before father is born? That's what happening in the country. They are inserting the backdoor entry by way of rule, which provision is yet to be made effective. And pertaining to this provision, writ has been filed in different high court, including Delhi High Court. And for the benefit of viewers, it is being admitted and notice is being issued to the revenue. Time will say what happened, but I'm of the considered view. You have seen that we were debating a lot. Many guys are watching me from Surat region. You would be knowing that I said 3B is not a return. GSTR 3B is not a return under section 39. I said long time back. There must be some of the participants, they would be agreeing to my view. I said long time back. And later on, Honorable Gujarat High Court has held 3B is not a return under section 39. It was inserted by way of rule 61 sub rule 5. That was the good. Now this SLP filed and gone to Supreme Court, yet to be decided. But my only considered view and humble submission, why government insert some rule which is not being endorsed or substantiated by the provision of law. So this was on rule 36 sub rule 4. Now what is the change coming in this rule? You must be knowing that Honorable Finance Minister has made many announcements as a tax relief measure due to COVID-19, Corona. And all these announcements were made on 24th March 2020. Now the corresponding notifications are out in the market, and notification number are 30 to 36 oblique 2020, and all are dated 3rd April 2020. So there are 6 specific notifications. And a circular issued number is 136 dated 3rd April 2020. So notification number 30 oblique 2020 says, pertaining to this rule 36 sub rule 4. What it says Bimal, condition the capping of 10%, which is prescribed in rule 36 sub rule 4 for the month February to August. February, March, April, May, June, July, August 2020. For these many months, you need not require to adhere the condition. You'd be feeling so relaxed, right? They have relaxed the provision. But then further says that now you have to adhere cumulatively. Adhere means you have to give effect, compliance to be made cumulatively in the month of September GSTR 3B. So pertaining to February to August, you have to comply cumulatively, you have to adhere the condition cumulatively and give a fact of cumulative application in the September 2020 GSTR 3B. So relaxation provided for Rule 36 sub Rule 4. So this was the first out of 10 points which I wanted to discuss. Coming to the second burning issues. Having said that this Rule 36 sub Rule 4 putting a condition though contrary to the act, we are debating, writ has been filed in the court. Another rule, and I must say draconian rule, point number 2. So I'm discussing all the point one after another. So you'd be taking down, yes, I discussed first Rule 36 sub Rule 4. I'm going a little slow so that everyone must understand. I'm sure that this is the way we can, get more grasping of the provision, and then we can also discuss later on within ourselves that what all we discuss, what are the provision coming in, what are the things we must look into. Second point, Rule 86A, draconian provision. Rule 86A, draconian provision got inserted, again inserted. From 26th of December 2019, by notification number 75/2019. I was thinking this Rule 36 sub Rule 4 itself was a draconian. They top it up, some top up of what? Rule 86A. Now this says, and very interesting, what this says, commissioner or an officer not below the rank of assistant commissioner can block my ITC input tax credit. They can block my ITC for 1 year, maximum 1 year, so that I should not use this credit for discharging my GST output tax under section 49 or claim refund thereof. So government has given power to themselves. They can block my ITC, but we must know what are the circumstances wherein they are allowed, and they can block my ITC for a maximum 1 year period. Look at the 5 circumstances. What are those 5 circumstances? The first circumstances, if Bimal Jain, being recipient, has availed credit on the basis of invoice raised by my supplier, and supplier is non-existent or non-conducting business from their registered premises, the first condition. Just try to listen very carefully. They are saying Bimal Jain has availed credit on the basis of invoice raised by my supplier, which you all are. You are non-existent or not conducting business from your premises. Very good. On face of it, provision looks like they want to safeguard all fake invoices. They want to safeguard all fake invoices. Very well said. But now I'm putting forth my submission before you. Let's say I started doing business with you sometime from September 2017. I started doing business with you September 2017. And continuing doing this business for a long time. I'm continuing till now. All of a sudden, government comes, officer comes and say, Mr. Jain, this supplier, Mr. A, on whose invoice you have availed credit, he is non-existent. He's not existing at all. And he's not conducting business also. Being recipient, will I not get amazed? Last 2 years, I'm doing business and everything was going fine. All of a sudden, tax officers comes and saying that, no, this supply is non-existent and he's not conducting business. I do understand that they want to protect the government revenue. They want to create a mechanism to check fake invoices. But within that, they are creating problem for the trade industry and commerce. I'm doing business for last 2 years, and are they not better positioned to check whether this supplier is existent or not? Because last 2 years, everything going fine. I'm doing everything fine. And there may be a case this supplier is doing mixed, raising valid invoice and raising fake invoice. How do I come to know that he has raised a fake invoice and my credit would be denied on that pretext? Being taxpayer and buyer, I'm not that equipped as Department H, but this is what the provision is now being made. Second, before I move to second, let me complete this first condition. Now, henceforth, government is strengthening their system to check tax evasion, to check fake invoices, and being tax consultant or honest taxpayer, or as a buyer of goods or services, we have now responsibility. What is the responsibility? Now, government is saying, Bimal, henceforth, I'm going to give the registration only after Aadhaar authentication. Aadhaar authentication. So, strengthening the provision for registration. Second, they are saying, Bimal, there is an Aadhaar authentication going on. At the same time, there's a concept called know your customer. You must be knowing in a banking sector. Now they are coming with the concept of know your supplier. So henceforth, in government is saying, being recipient, being buyer, you must know your supplier. So it's a responsibility on recipient, and burden of proof lies on recipient under section 155 of CGST Act. He must ensure that he's purchasing goods or services from legitimate supplier. And as a way forward in new written system, let me tell you, in new written system, my credit, buyer's credit, credit in the hands of recipient of goods or services is now going to be unilateral, meaning thereby, if my supplier upload the invoice particulars in ANX 1, which is the new written system, going to be applicable from 1st October 2020, then only that is going to be reflected in my ANX 2, which is my credit, ANX 2. So there would be auto matching. Provisional credit, let's say you have not uploaded the invoice, then for the timing, interim transition time period, they have given T plus 2 month concept, T plus 2 month concept, only for the normal written filer, RET1, normal written filer. If you are doing Sahaj, RET2, or Sugam, RET3, then you will not have option of availing credit on missing invoices, meaning thereby in a new return they are strengthening all this thing. So as a way forward, things are going to be, being recipient, I must know my supplier well and ensure this supplier is genuine and legally doing business. Then credit going to be available. But I'm discussing about the past period, wherein I have availed credit bona fidely, having good reasonable belief. All of a sudden, can you create a provision by way of rule and block my ITC? This is what I'm countering. So first. Second, being recipient, if you are non-existent and not conducting business from your registered location, then your credit can be blocked. So this is quite obvious. Third condition, being recipient, you must have received goods or services. This is one of the conditions for availing credit. Under section 16, subsection 2, you must receive goods or services. Then only you can avail credit. Fourth condition, that you must have tax invoice. One of the conditions for section 16 subsection 2. Last condition is very interesting, and here I would like to take some more minute, and then we will sum up rule 86A. The last condition says, Bimal being recipient, my credit is going to be denied. Being recipient, my credit going to be denied for non-payment of tax by my supplier. Section 16, subsection 2, clause C. We all are debating. You raise the invoice, being supplier, 10 lakh rupees, charge 18% GST. I'm an honest taxpayer. Being recipient, I paid the amount to you, to my supplier. You are the person. Sorry, don't take blame personally on you. It's just the provision which I'm rehearsing now. So keep smiling and taking a sip of tea or coffee which is in front of you, a water, and try to digest. You are the person, even after collection, you have not deposited to the government exchequer. Can my credit is denied for non-payment by you? That's what the provision all about. My credit would be denied in terms of section 16, subsection 2, clause C. Credit would be denied. Now, when I'm saying so, I'm thinking what mistake I made. It's my supplier who defaulted. Government should have catch hold of them. Instead, denying credit in my hand. Now, government is saying it's difficult for us to run after so many suppliers and vendors. We will bar you not to avail credit. I'm of the view that section 16, subsection 2, clause C, again would like to highlight. It is subject to 41 provisional credit and 43A. And 43A still to be made effective, which is not effective as on date. Just I'm thinking when particular section which is subject to 43A and 43A is not effective, whether it can sustain. Can't I take credit? Supplier defaulted. I have legitimately paid him. I must be allowed credit. So first legal point. Second point. Supplier defaulted, whose fault? See, initially they started with the 3 return, GSTR1, auto-populated in 2A for recipient, GSTR2, ITC return, auto-populated in GSTR1A for supplier. Then GSTR3, government has discontinued GSTR2 and 3, only continuing with the GSTR1 and 3B. See, had it been continued, then what could be the position? You are my supplier. Let's say you have not uploaded invoice. Will not be reflected in my 2A. Had it continued, I would have included add that transaction in my 2A before finalizing GSTR2. Then if I'm adding this invoice, then there would be mismatch. ITC availed by recipient and outward tax paid by the supplier by GSTR1, which could have been captured by the government department since GSTR2 is not available. And then also this difference would have been notified by way of GSTR1A to the supplier, and supplier having option either to accept and reject and confirm by 17th of next month. So what happened? All such situation could have been resolved had we continued with GSTR2 and 3. They have done away with GSTR2 and 3 for their own inefficiency. Now they are passing and saying we can't go to all supplier. We can only restrict credit in the hands of recipient of goods or services. Surprise, big surprise to my mind. Now I'm coming back to the background pre-GST. that the KK Industries Honorable Supreme Court judgment came in Central Excise. Therein it was held that for supplier's default, you cannot penalize the recipient. There was one Arise India Limited, Delhi High Court judgment. There also it was held non-payment of tax by supplier, credit can't be denied in the hands of recipient. When SLP filed against the Delhi High Court judgment, that got dismissed with no observation, no interference. So I know that Supreme Court has not given any concluding judgment on that. But Delhi High Court judgment categorically said non-payment by supplier, credit can't be denied in the hands of recipient. Now, I have also given legal position to you that section 16, subsection 2, clause C is subject to 41 and 43A. And 43A is yet to be effective. So having said that, can be apply section 16, subsection 2, clause C, and we have seen the writ started, filing before the High Court. In Delhi High Court, Bharti Telemedia Limited, writ has been admitted and notice is being issued to the revenue and a different High Court in the country. Only on section 16, subsection 2, clause C. If you want my considered view, I am of the considered view, believe me, it is subject to 43A, which is yet to be effective. And I have taken all reasonable care, burden of proof. It's supplier's fault. I am hopeful, positive hopeful, that this will go in favor of taxpayer. That is my considered view. Now, I have said Rule 86A got inserted from 26 December 2019. Just to tell you that Haryana government issued similar circular sometime on 30th October 2018. It's all copy-paste, all copy-paste. You got similar kind of provision, Rule 19 in Sandbet Create Rules 2004, which is there in Rule 86A. Now, so what is the way forward for all of us? Being a recipient, now you should be more vigilant and you should be taking care, burden of proof lies on us being recipient, that you should know your supplier, Aadhaar authentication, and it is like vendor management. And in new written system, my credit is dependent on my vendor only. So way forward, we need to be vigilant about where from we are purchasing goods or services. This was point number 2, burning issues, Rule 86A. Now come to the third burning issues. Third burning issues on the recently one advanced ruling is floating in a market. And this advanced ruling says GST leviable on directors' remuneration. This advanced ruling is floating in the market and it is stating that GST leviable on directors' remuneration. Now, I would like to discuss this issue and to provide clarity to all of you. So this is a third important issue. Now, if you look at my view on this topic, I tweeted yesterday and I've categorically said, and this is there on Facebook, those who are connected with me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, they must be knowing that at least I'm trying my best, whatever best possible, giving my views quickly. I tweeted yesterday and said very clearly, no GST on directors' remuneration if there is employer and employee relationship. So services by a director to the company as employment contract wherein TDS, tax deducted at source under Income Tax Act, is being deducted, under section 192, then I am of the considered view that GST not leviable. Believe me, GST not leviable. So what we must check? We must check that director's services to the company as employer and employee employment contract, TDS is being deducted under section 192, no GST leviable. Now, to substantiate further, if any employee providing services to the employer, it's falling in Schedule 3 transaction. Schedule 3 is what? Neither a supply of goods nor a supply of services. So I'm of the view, if it is an employment contract, then this is neither a supply of goods nor supply of services. Hence, no GST leviable. Then question will come, sir, how we are going to substantiate it is an employment contract? It is our documentation, dear. Documentation between company and director. You give a contract and agreement, and that contract and agreement must state it's an employment kind of contract. I do not know whether you would be knowing this aspect. This aspect is very much debated under income tax. When we talk about doctors are giving services to the hospitals. Doctors are giving services to the hospital. Under Income Tax Act, it was debated on the line that whether the doctors are under employment contract. If they are under employment contract, then 192 going to be applicable. If they are consultant, professional services, 194J is being considered. Then they are not the employee. They are not the employee. And it is debated at length. So what I'm taking clue from here, if you are deducting TDS on director's remuneration under section 194J, which is called professional services, then you are not into employment contract. You are not into employment contract. Hence, GST going to be leviable. And this was the case when you look at pre-GST era as well, under service tax. If you look at notification 30/2012, negative list regime, pre-GST era, prior to 1st July 2017, same issue was there. And that time it got settled. If the employment contract, no GST, other than employment contract, GST leviable, and that too under reverse charge method. Means company and body corporate, they need to discharge the GST liability under reverse charge method. Similar kind of provision we are finding in reverse charge notification for supplier of service in GST regime, notification number 13/2017, entry number 6. So what I concluded? If it is an employment contract, no GST. If no GST, there is no question of forward charge and reverse charge. If it is other than employment contract and you are paying any amount, let's say meeting fees or some other amount by whatever name called, other than employment contract, 194J TDS is being deducted, then GST leviable, and that GST is going to be leviable under reverse charge by notification number 13/2017, entry number 6, reverse charge method. Now taking one more item into this disputed and burning issue, let's say, and this question I'm going to ask you in a comment box. So I will not answer it. I will look for the answer from all of you. So I will pause and check who all are really listening me carefully and giving me the answer. Let's say I'm a director. Now, I got employment contract. Assume hypothetically, TDS deducted under section 192. I have given my considered view that GST not leviable. Now, in the same example which I'm discussing, I got my one commercial property, and I let out the same property to the company. This property is being let out to the company, commercial property to the company. And I'm also getting rent from the company. Now, please tell me, for this rent, which I'm getting from the company, first question, whether GST leviable or not leviable. So I want to see in comment box, say yes or no. GST applicable. Yes. GST leviable. Okay. All right. Now, next question. Just pause. Next question. All right. Is it going to be forward charge or reverse charge method? It is going to be forward charge or reverse charge method. Please. Next question. Forward charge or reverse charge method? Okay. So now different answer coming from different corners. Maximums are giving a right answer, but still I'm finding mistakes happening from many participants. Let's correct. Answer is, it is forward charge method. This is not the services in the capacity of directors, first of all. This is not the services in the capacity of director, hence forward charge applicable. So registration provision will come into the picture depending on the threshold amount. If your threshold amount exceeds under section 22 of CGST Act, then you need to get registered and then charge GST under forward charge method. So I have given these answers to all of you and explained the concept to you as well. So this was the third burning issue. Coming to the now fourth burning issue, fourth one. And now fourth, I will connect very interestingly. And now here you have to listen to me very carefully. Okay, let me start. Let's say you got this, there's a fourth item. So I'm changing the topic now. So you should change your gear now. Take the fourth item now. Fourth item is, let's say you got credit of 6,25,000 in CGST and SGST. 6,25,000 in respective account. Now, while filing your 3B, which normally you have seen, we normally file our 3B and we reach to the last date. And whenever we reach to the last date, my service is always GST and Common Portal is highly occupied on that date. And we keep trying filing 3B. And we have seen practically that 3B normally goes in the evening time, because daytime it is highly populated and hectic, server is busy. That kind of answer keeps coming, because at one point of time, maximum 1,50,000 taxpayer can log in, which now they are increasing to 3 lakh taxpayer at the same point of time. So this is what Mr. Nandan Nilekani has given presentation to GST Council in their 39 GST Council meeting on 14th March 2020. But now, taken this example, try to understand. When I was filing my 3B, I was supposed to file and take credit 6,25,000 in respective account. But since I was filing, I made mistake. I put 0, which I did not see that it was not going in my 3B. So I keep adding 0, 0, 0. so that I can file my 3B. By the time I finalized and submitted my 3B, I come across that as against 6,25,000, my credit, which is being filled up because I was putting zero after zero in impression that zero is not visible, it becomes 6 crore 25 lakh in respective account, as against 6,25,000. So this was the scenario. So one of the CFO from a company coming to my office and asking me, sir, there's a small question. He said small question. And in GST, whenever you listen anyone, there is only small question. There is no large question. They always say small question, very small question. So he sent to me small question. He said, Bimal, there's a small question. I said, what is that small question you want to ask? He said, Bimal, my guy who is filing 3B, he has wrongly availed credit of 6 crore 25 lakh in respective account, CGST and SGST, as against 6,25,000. What should I do? I said, it's a very small question. You must reverse credit. So succeeding month, you must reverse credit. So he was very smart fellow. He said, yes, I know I need to reverse it. My only question is, do I require to pay interest on reversal of this wrong credit availed in my 3B? Now, this question I'm posting to all of you, whether interest is going to be levied under section 50 subsection 1 for reversal of this wrongly availed credit. Okay, so good. So many guys are peeping in and answering to me very well. Okay, all right. Okay, just pause now. Okay, everyone started giving their views also. Okay, Jagdish, Devendra, not an issue. Now come back. Listen carefully. I'm very much satisfied the way you are participating and contributing. This really shows this webinar going from both sides. Sabka Saath, Sabka Viswas. Though I'm not from BJP, but going from both of us together. We are trying our best and trying our best in a way required to be. Okay, listen. Okay. Listen carefully now. This guy asking me, sir, do I require to pay interest? I said, boss, I need to check legally whether you need to really pay interest or not. I given the opinion which I'm sharing with all of you today. I'm sharing this opinion with all of you today. And what is this opinion? As per me, no interest. As per me, no interest on reversal of this wrongly availed credit, which is suo moto reversed by me before utilization. And in my opinion, I have given 3 regions, which I'm going to share with all of you. 3 regions why interest should not be levied. The first region I gave, under section 50 subsection 1, which talked about interest. Interest is leviable when you fail to pay tax. Either it is short paid or non-payment of tax. Now, I'm creating an example for you so that you can understand this scenario. Let's say I got 1,000 rupees liability. 1,000 rupees liability. And I got 500 rupees, 1,000 rupees liability, and I got 500 rupees in my e-credit ledger, which includes 100 rupees wrongly availed credit, the similar kind of credit which I'm referring to. So my e-credit ledger is having 500 rupees, which includes 100 rupees wrongly availed credit. I paid 900 rupees through my e-cash ledger because 1,000 rupees was the liability. I have paid 900 rupees through my e-cash ledger, and I paid 100 rupees from my e-credit ledger. Now the question is, can I argue that I have not used that 100 rupees which was wrongly availed? I can very well argue other way around. No, I have not used that wrongly availed credit. I have used my legitimate availed credit, and I've utilized that credit for discharging the GST liability. So there is no short payment, there is no non-payment, hence interest is not leviable. My first argument. Second argument, Patna High Court judgment, one of the participants cited also in comment box, Patna High Court judgment in the commercial steel has categorically said till the time credit availed result into reduction in output tax liability, meaning thereby utilized, interest should not be levied. Interest should not be levied. So in my same example, I have not utilized this wrongly availed credit. So to my mind, interest is not leviable. And third argument, why I have carried on 6 crore 25 lakh as against 6 lakh 25,000. I'm giving you another third argument. You know, GSTR 3B, we are filing and we are making lot many mistakes, clerical, human error. It's not intentional. There's no intention to evade taxes. Neither I want to evade tax, nor it is intentional. Now I'm saying if I've wrongly filed my 3B, which was the case, since there is no revision option in 3B, had it been given to me, there's no revision option in 3B. Had it been given to me, I could have corrected my 3B. So being honest taxpayer, I'm not holding back myself. There's no window given to me to correct my 3B. That's the reason it carried on to succeeding month. And in succeeding month, I'm reversing this credit suo moto. I'm giving you one of the life case. A guy was having only 1 lakh rupees as a tax liability. 1 lakh rupees as a tax liability. When he was filing his 3B, by mistake, let's say he was again putting the figure which was not visible. So he was keep putting the figure one after another, zero one after another, because he can't see that zero is being submitted. He can't see that. That's the reason in that pretext he was putting zero after zero. By the time he filed 3B, it becomes 100 crore rupees as against 1 lakh rupees. As soon as he filed this 3B, the concerned commissionerate got amazed. They got surprised and they were so happy that they got a large taxpayer from whom they are supposed to collect 100 crore rupees. Immediately they said, notice, Mr. A, kindly submit and pay your tax 100 crore. You submitted your 3B. This fellow running after pillar to post went to the department, said, sir, it's a mistake, human error. I made a mistake. It was only 1 lakh rupees. But since putting zero after zero, which I did, which is human error, clerical error, it is showing 100 crore. They say nothing going. You pay this tax. And then this case has gone to the High Court, I'm telling you. And in the High Court, this guy has again said, taxpayer again said, Lordship, is the manual error on my part for filing 3B. It is only 1 lakh rupees. I'm giving these numbers for an example to demonstrate that 3B revision is not available. I can make mistake. He did the same mistake. Since there is no revision option, would department coming back and saying, department coming back and saying to, sir, ask this fellow taxpayer to adjust this amount in subsequent month 3B. This taxpayer jumping and coming back and saying, Lordship, if I will do business till my last breath, then also I will not be able to adjust this difference of 100 crore versus 1 lakh. Not possible. Honorable High Court has allowed manual filing of 3B, manual filing of 3B, and it has happened in case of Tran 1, in another case as well, where wrongly figures were filled up. Why it is manually allowed? For simple reason that I cannot correct my 3B or Tran 1 till the time revision option given, mistake was made. So I given the same basis of judgment to say that if I have availed credit 6 crore 25 lakh, which was human error, suo motu I am reversing, then what happened? I have been given no option from the government so that I could have corrected myself. So in succeeding month, I have corrected. So interest is not leviable. Now let's conclude this point. We all are supposed to file 2018-19 annual return, GSTR 9 and 9C. You may come across that you may have availed some credit in 17-18, let's assume, or 18-19, leave annual return, even though you come across that you have taken some credit which was not available to you. Then my considered view to all of you would be that you should not pay interest on reversal of such wrongly availed credit if you have not utilized the same. Keep to your mind if you have not utilized the same. So do not get confused. My considered view, interest leviable only when it is utilized. Point number 4. Coming to the point number 5. Point number 5, again, very, very interesting. And this is interesting from the perspective of what we see happening, really it is not happening. I can see something, but that I can't see. This is what the irony in GST law. Let me take one example, which is the 5th item. And this 5th item I'm just starting with. If I've got GST liability, I can discharge my GST liability either through e-cash ledger or through e-credit ledger. And e-cash ledger and e-credit ledger, we got bucket. IGST, CGST, SGST, UTGST, cess, right? We all debating in the past why we have bucket in e-cash ledger. And I'm sure those who are watching now, there must be some of the tax consultant and taxpayer, they might have made the mistake. Mistake of what? I'm telling you the live case study of one of my company. A big company, they paid 5 crore rupees in cash, deposited in IGST e-cash ledger, whereas they wanted to deposit in CGST e-cash ledger so that they can adjust with the CGST liability. This was the issue. Wrongly paid 5 crore. It may have happened to you in the past, and this was the case which I'm discussing with all of you. We were asking to the Government of India and GST Council, sir, why you have created bucket in e-cash ledger? E-cash ledger should have only one bucket, where from I can pay my any liability. Why should I have bucket? And since I paid 5 crore in IGST, which should have been to CGST e-cash ledger, what government said, Mr. Jain, there is nothing to worry. You deposit a fresh 5 crore in CGST and take refund of 5 crore from IGST. I'm sure maximum of you will agree with me, getting refund from the department is a tedious task. Tedious task. If we delay in payment of tax, that the rate of interest is 18%. If department delay in giving refund to me, which normally principal money we are not getting back. If there's a delay, the provision says 6% rate of interest, disparity for rate of interest. And then getting my money back itself is a tedious task. So we started saying and arguing, and we have gone to GST Council saying that, sir, why can't you allow intertransferability? Intertransferability means if I've wrongly deposited into IGST eCash ledger, allow me to get it transferred to eCash of CGST account. It was, and I started this point saying that what we see, we do not see. In 31st GST Council meeting, which was held on 22nd December 2018, principally GST Council recommended transferability from one head to another head. Looking so nice. 22nd December 2018. Now I'm asking, for this intertransferability, there's a form called PMT08. PMT08. Asking now to all participants and viewers, tell me, has come? PMT08 has come? Please tell me yes or no. Please, I want to listen this answer from all of you, whether PMT08 has come or not. Please. No, it hasn't come. It hasn't come. No, no, no. It is yet to be. Yet to be. Believe me, yet to be. Now, my only one point. Everyone is saying, Bharat, kindly check at your end. It has not come as yet. PMT08 is not available as yet. Listen. Now, I'm asking only one thing. GST Council recommended and said there would be intertransferability, but it is not available. It is not available. Don't you see that there's a disconnect between the decision taken and decision implemented? What we want to see, if we want to see GST as a good and simple tax, Bimal Jain would be expecting whatever decided must be implemented on timely basis. Am I right? If it is not happening, then this is not giving a realistic picture. A realistic picture of what? A realistic picture of making GST good and simple tax. Good and simple tax. Nevertheless, this was the point number 5. Coming to the point number 6, I'm still running short of time and I cannot go in a hurried manner. So whatever best possible within 1 hour 30 minutes or 1 hour 35 and 40 minutes odd, I will carry on. I really want that whatever I'm discussing today, you should get best out of it. Going in a hurried manner, sometime what happened, you will not be able to capture the provision and the practical example. My recent changes, I will try to catch if time permit. Just go along with me. Listen to item number 6. Item number 6. Item number 6 says, interest on gross tax versus net tax liability. Interest on gross tax versus net tax liability. Start with an example. Let's say I got 1 crore rupees GST liability and I got 80 lakh rupees lying in my e-credit ledger. 80 lakh rupees lying in my e-credit ledger. So I need to make payment of only 20 lakh. But I could not deposit 20 lakh for simple reason, for want of fund, cash. GST is accrual liability, irrespective of fact whether you collected or not collected. you must pay on accrual basis. And just look at this irony of this country when we talk about SME, MSME, that I have not collected the money, but still I have to deposit the taxes from my own pocket. So doing business means I have to get the money from my house and deposit the tax, which I have not collected as yet. If I don't deposit, the rate of interest is 18%. So what happened? I need to go back to bank and take the loan and deposit the government revenue, so that taking loan would be much easier, 12%, 13%, but not paying the tax, rate of interest is 18%. This is the irony. Nevertheless, my topic was whether interest to be levied on gross tax versus net tax. So in an example given, I'm supposed to deposit only 20 lakh, which I could not deposit for want of money. After 6 months, I'm depositing the amount, filing my 3B. Now question comes, this interest going to be levied on 20 lakh, which is the net tax liability, or 1 crore, which is the gross tax liability. Telangana High Court, in the case of Mega Engineering, has held that interest to be charged on gross tax liability, 1 crore rupees, 1 crore rupees. Further, the Honorable Telangana High Court says, Mr. Jain, you are saying that 80 lakh rupees lying in your e-credit ledger has nothing to do. It's standing in a cloud till the time it is appropriated by filing 3B. So they are saying it is standing in a cloud. At the same time, you have seen that lot many notices are being sent to the taxpayer pan India, and department want to collect interest on gross tax liability. Even CBIC tweet, which came out in the market, they say interest is on gross tax. Even interdepartmental directives issued by some senior government official from Ministry of Finance, he says it is on gross tax liability, and further he has continued to say that it can be collected even without issuance of so-called notice under Section 73 non-fraud, 74 fraud cases. They have gone to that level. Now I'm highlighting the important aspect to you. The Madras Division Bench High Court judgment, Madras High Court, they have concluded. But before what they have concluded, let me draw that this dispute is not a new dispute. This representation of trade, industry and commerce is not a new representation. It got represented to GST Council long time back. You can check that press release of 31st GST Council meeting, 31st GST Council meeting held on 22nd December 2018. In that particular press release, it is being stated that GST Council is recommending interest to be charged on net tax liability. This is there. Believe me, this is there. And on this recommendation, a proviso got inserted by CGST Amendment Act 2018. In fact, that proviso got inserted under Section 50, subsection 1, and they say interest to be charged on net tax liability unless any proceedings are being initiated under Section 73, which is non-fraud case, 74, which is fraud case. Proviso got inserted, but to surprise to all of you, this proviso is not made effective as on date. It is not applicable as on date. It is from a date to be notified. I'm just trying and visualizing my situation. Something which GST Council recommend on 22nd December 2018, proviso getting inserted. Why such proviso kept open to be notified? I do not understand. That is not understandable to me. Then in 39 GST Council meeting, which happened recently on 14th March 2020, again they are saying, it's a laudable one when they're saying something good for the trade, industry and commerce, we must clap for them. They're saying, no, Bimal, we understand your position. Oh, interest must be charged on net tax liability and should be made retrospectively from 1st July 2017. It's a laudable one. But can't they go back and check their own books, what they decide in 31st? Proviso inserted, not made effective. Again, they have to decide on same subject matter. Then what is accountability and responsibility? Who is checking at their end? What they decide, whether implemented or not? Or really, we have to see, these are the challenges. This matter has gone to Madras High Court Division Bench, reflects industry. Fortunately, Madras High Court decided that interest to be charged on net tax liability, and that should be read retrospectively. But if you look at the judgment, I'm of the view this judgment is incorrect only on one point. The High Court has relied on the proviso which got inserted under section 50 subsection 1, but neither from the taxpayer side, petitioner, nor from the department side has highlighted that that proviso is yet to be made effective. And Honorable High Court has relied heavily on that proviso, saying this proviso got inserted, which is hinting now it's on net tax liability. And since it got inserted, it clarifies that that should be applicable with retrospective date. And thereafter, we are getting this 39 GST Council meeting recommendation. They have said that now it is on net tax liability, retrospectively, laudable, but the changes are yet to be made. But within this, I'm getting two questions from the trade. The first question which I'm getting from the trade, many guys are asking me, sir, what should I do? Should I pay on net or should I pay on gross? My advice to you, you should pay only on net tax. Another query which I'm getting from the trade, they're asking me, sir, I have already paid on gross tax liability. What should I do? My advice to you would be, you file your refund claim once these provisions are getting amended. Because you yourself has paid interest from your own pocket on gross tax, which is otherwise on net tax, applicable retrospectively, then I must get back my interest from the department, from the tax department. This was on interest gross versus net. Now let me take recent changes so that we can sum up our presentation. Maybe 15 minutes I will take more to cover up recent changes, and then if time permits, we will take the question answer session as well. Now, as you know, that recent changes as a tax relief measure, which is being announced by Honorable Finance Minister on 24th March 2020, and all these are being notified by notification number 30 to 36, all dated 3rd April 2020. And these changes are divided into 6 components. So let's listen one after another. 6 components. First one pertaining to the composition dealer or supplier of service under composition by notification number 2/2019. If you have not opted for the composition for financial year 2020-21 CMP 02, now you can file by 30th June. You can file by 30th June. Now, in case you're moving from normal to composition, then you know that you need to reverse ITC on input in semi-finished goods, input in finished goods, capital goods, wide ITC 03, and this can be filed by 31st July 2020. Another change for the composition dealer, that being composition dealer, you need to pay your self-assessment tax on quarterly basis. Write CMP 08. So for Jan to March 2020, January, February, March 2020 quarter, CMP 08 can be filed by 7th July 2020. 7th July 2020. CMP 08. GSTR 4, which is now annual affairs for composition dealer, for the financial year 2019-20, you can file by 15th of July 2020. So these changes are pertaining to the composition dealer. Coming to the point number 2. Point number 2, GSTR 3B and GSTR 1. Now, announcement as made by Honorable Finance Minister, they created 2 categories. Taxpayer having aggregate turnover more than 5 crore. Taxpayer having aggregate turnover less than 5 crore. Now you may note, you must be noting down all the important points that pertaining to 3B and GSTR 1, there is no due date extension. You should not assume that due date got extended. Notification number 31, talking about reduced rate of interest or nil rate of interest. 32 talks about waiver of late fees pertaining to GSTR 3B. And 33 talks about waiver of late fees for GSTR 1. So let's listen very carefully, maybe 5 minutes carefully. Now 31 and 32 I'm discussing. 31 talks about interest, 32 talks about late fees for 3B. So for GSTR 3B, the first category, if you are a taxpayer whose aggregate turnover is more than 5 crore in preceding financial year. So should not get confused in preceding financial year or in current financial year. Having aggregate turnover more than 5 crore in preceding financial year, then you must file your 3B, GSTR 3B for February, March and April. February, March and April by 24th June 2020. If you file by 24th June 2020, then first benefit, no late fee is going to be levied. Second, interest would be nil for 15 days from due date plus 15 days, no interest, nil interest. Only after 15 days thereafter, reduced rate of interest as against 18% per annum, it is going to be 9% per annum and to be calculated on daily basis. So for understanding sake, let's take an example that you are a taxpayer whose aggregate turnover more than 5 crore in preceding financial year. You want to file March 2020 GSTR 3B. March 2020 3B is due by 20th April 2020. What this notification 31 read with 32 says, Bimal, For March, if you're filing by 5th May, then 15 days added with the due date, then there will be no interest, no late fees. If it is filed thereafter 5th May, then interest is leviable, but at reduced rate, 9% per annum to be calculated on daily basis. So taking the same example, if you file on 10th May, then there would be interest for 5 days at 9% per annum. Only condition, you must file by 24th June 2020. So taking this example further, if you file your March 3B on 30th June, now question goes to all of you, all those who are watching me. If March 20 return filed on 30th June, not by 24th June, my simple question, whether he would be allowed the benefit of interest, which is nil for 15 days, reduced thereafter, or waiver of late fees, please tell me. Perfect. No benefit allowed. Very well. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now come. Next. Now next category is taxpayer having aggregate turnover less than 5 crore. In this category, they have created two subcategory. What is two subcategory? First is taxpayer whose aggregate turnover is less than 5 crore but more than 1.5 crore in a preceding financial year. Then for them, no interest, nil interest, no late fees provided they file 3B for February and March by 29th June, and for April they are filing by 30th June. So no interest, no late fees provided. February, March filed on 29th June, April filed on 30th June. Now, for the taxpayer whose aggregate turnover less than 1.5 crore in a preceding financial year, so condition prescribed, no interest, no late fees provided. February 3B, month of February 3B must go by 30th June, March must go by 3rd July, and April must go by 6th July. So for category less than 5 crore, there are two subcategory, and these dates are being prescribed. No interest, no late fees. Now coming for GSTR 1. For GSTR 1, there is a complete waiver of late fees. Starting from March. So difference, when we discuss about 3B, it was February, March, April. But when we are talking about GSTR 1, it is March, April, May, or quarter ending March. If filed by 30th June, then there is a complete waiver of late fees. Irrespective of any threshold aggregate turnover. So this was pertaining to GSTR 1. And this waiver of late fees for GSTR 1 is being stated in notification number 33/2020. Now coming for the month of May, which is not being stated anywhere. Month of May 2020. So for month of May, a separate notification 36/2020 got issued, And it says, if it is for such taxpayer whose aggregate turnover is more than 5 crore in a preceding financial year, then 3B for the month of May to be filed by 27th June 2020. And if it is for less than 5 crore in a preceding financial year, then it is staggered on 2 different dates, 12th July or 12 July or 14 July, 12 July or 14 July, depending on the specified state. So you may check this respective notification 36 to check your state. If you're less than 5 crore, then it may be either 12 July or 14 July. So this is all for 3B and 1. Now coming to the last important 35/2020. 35/2020. This is very important, and there are 3 important changes in 35/2020. The first, validity of eBay bill, which got generated from 20th March to 15th April, getting extended to 30th April now. First. Second, if you have to file a GSTR 5 being non-resident taxable person, GSTR 6 as ISD input service distributor, GSTR 7 TDS deductor, GSTR 8 as tax collected at source, and time limit for filing these return expiring in a period starting from 20th March 2020 to 29th June 2020, then the due date would be 30th June 2020. So what is coming out for GSTR 5, 6, 7, 8? If due date is expiring in this time period starting from 20th March to 29 June, then due date would be 30th June 2020. Having said that, I'm getting one query from different corner. If it is TDS, due date is now 30th June. Do we require to make payment on 30th June, or interest is going to be applicable? No interest, no late fees pertaining to these return 5, 6, 7, 8, whose time limit expiring in a period starting from 20th March to 29 June, it is 30th June. So if you file and pay on 30th June, no interest, no late fees. Last point of today's deliberation of 35/2020. Now this notification says, Bimal, for any compliances in GST law, any compliances under GST law whose time limit is expiring in this specified period 20th March to 29th June, then due date would be 30th June. So what could be the case? Your refund application, your appeal to be filed, LUT to be executed, statement to be given, then all such provision which is required compliance under GST law getting extended to 30th June, except this notification has got exclusion also, where this provision is not applicable. Like they have said, it is not applicable for time of supply, valuation, section 27. You may check notification number 35/2020, what all provision are falling under exclusion clause where this blanket relaxation is not available and applicable. So I'm almost through with 1 hour 45 minutes. So given a chance, I have tried to make it as simple as possible from my side. All the viewers are connected with me and they wanted practical approach from my side. So I'm not taken PowerPoint presentation. Tried from my side to update you with the recent changes. Try to update you with the burning issues and align together. I tried my best to make it GST as a good and simple tax. I know a lot of things are happening, a lot of things are moving around, and we are in lockdown time period. We must adhere to the guidelines and instruction given by Honorable Prime Minister. I'm requesting each one of you, I'm taking this particular minute, that each one of us are responsible and we must take our message way forward to mass population. We need to be united together to fight against Corona. Stay at home, maintain social distancing, and fight against this Corona. And wherever possible from your side, try to provide food, charity, whatever best possible, whatever best we can do. Pray to the Almighty God that we should succeed in fighting against Corona. So I'm thanking each one of you for your active and positive contribution. Your feedback, suggestion is important to me. And I'm saying together we will win against this Corona. Thank you. Thank you very much.